शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। वज्रनानन्दनं वीरं जानकी शोकनाशनं कपीशमक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लङ्काभयङ्करम्। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Namaskaram all of you and welcome to the 31st session of Narayaneeyam. It will be first on Jada Bharata Charitram as from Srimad-Bhagavatam, and we will later take up Dasakam 21, in which Bhattadri highlights the worship of Bhagavan or Supreme Brahman in different continents, as to which are the continents and how they are worshipped, in what form or rupam. In session 30, we saw in Dasakam 20 the incarnation of Bhagavan as Rishabha Yogeshwara, and how after his duties were successfully completed, Bhagavan transfers the responsibilities of the kingdom as Rishabha to his son Bharata and becomes an avaduta or free soul and a wandering recluse to specially teach serious lessons to the mortals, taking the form of a king who was retired from his material and mundane responsibilities. Even though Rishabha was an incarnation of Bhagavan, when Bhagavan comes as a human being and assumes the role of a king, how the king should terminate his role and go towards self-realization. That was the purpose of that Dasakam. Srimad-Bhagavatam says how the illustrious son of Rishabha, Maharaja Bharata, ruled over and protected the Mother Earth for 10 million years by his dharmic rule, and finally handed over the kingdom to his sons and retired to Pulahashrama in Haridwar for penance and realization of Atman or Brahman. Bharata lived alone, satisfied, constantly worshipping Paramatma, and with his heart uncontaminated by any desire or material demands. Bhattadri limits the story and descriptions at that point, however, as we noticed. But Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the source book of all spiritual literature that came after that, continues the story of Priyavrata's lineage with the story of Bharata, namely son of Rishabhadeva, in 5th canto, chapters 7 to 18, elaborately. Though this description contains the important and the remarkable story of Jada Bharata, it is not covered by Bhattadri and Srimad Narayaneeyam anywhere. It therefore becomes necessary for us to briefly highlight that for serious lessons for modern day karmis to learn from. Since we are at the very critical point of transition between the previous Dasakam to the next one, we decided to take up Jada Bharata's story here. Although Bharata Maharaja was justifiably exalted spiritually, especially, he too fell down from the elevated, exalted position due to a very small slip, namely his attachment to a young deer, which he happens to see when he was in his Parnashala. One day after Bharata had taken his usual bath in the river Gandaki, and while chanting the Nityopasana mantra, he saw a pregnant deer drinking water in the river. Suddenly he heard the thundering roar of a lion, and the frightened deer instantly gave birth to its fawn. The deer then crossed the river but died in the process, unable to bear the currents of the river. Bharata was at first compassionate towards the motherless fawn and thereby rescued it from the water, took it to his ashrama and cared for it with affection. That is where the slip started. He gradually became attached to this young deer and grew close to it beyond the usual compassion. As the little one grew up, it became Bharata's constant companion. Gradually, Bharata became so absorbed in thinking of this deer, which was growing from the stage of a fawn to a full-blown deer, that his mind was regularly agitated, slackening his pure bhakti or devotional service to Brahman and the very purpose of his retiring to ashrama. Although he was able to give up his opulent empire, Bharata could not do away with the attachment to the deer. Therefore, he fell down from his exalted mystic yogic stature, which he has accumulated over a long period of penance. Once, when the deer was absent, Bharata got so disturbed that he began to search for it and started lamenting the deer's absence. That is when Rishi Bharata fell down and died, lamenting the disappearance of deer. Because Bharata's mind was fully absorbed in the deer until his last breath, he naturally took his next birth from the womb of a deer. Because he was advanced spiritually, he did not forget his past activities, even though he took the body of a deer. This anecdote is for our education, since many of us are so intertwined with the lives of pets that we acquire, naming it to satisfy our children who desire having pets, that we end up having them at home and giving special attention. And these pets at times demand a lot more attention than the biological human children, and the loss of such a pet by the owners torments and twists their lives completely, even that of spiritually knowledgeable and elevated folks. Bharata could understand how he had fallen down from his exalted position, and remembering this, he left his mother deer and again went to Pulahashrama, where finally he ended his fruitive life of a deer, and his Atman was released from the body of the deer. As Bhagavad Gita says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram Tam tameva iti kaunteya sada tat bhava bhavitaha Yam hina vyatayanti yede purusham purusharshava Yam hina vyatayanti yede purusham purusharshava Samadukha sukham dhiram so amrutatvaya kalpate Samadukha sukham dhiram so amrutatvaya kalpate Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram Tam tameva iti kaunteya sada tat bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, Kaunteya. That state he will attain without fail because that's what he remembered when he quit the body. Yam jina veteyanti yete purusham purushashvabha samadukka sukham dhiram so amritatvaya kalpate. This is also Bhagavad Gita. We thus realize that the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both situations is certainly eligible for absolute liberation. In the 9th chapter of Canto 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukha gives the background to Parikshit as to Bharata Maharaja got the body of a Brahmana. Bharata Maharaja was a great devotee but did not attain success in one life. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the following: Prapya punyakritam lokanushitva Prapya punyakritam lokanushitva Shashwati samagaya Prapya punyakritam lokan Ushitva Shashwati sama Suchinam Shimatam Gege Suchinam Shimatam Gege Yoga Brashto Vijayate Yoga Brashto Vijayate Shimatam Gege Yoga Brashto Vijayate Yoginameva Kule Bhavati Dhimatam Yetadvidurlabhataram Loke Janmayati Drisham Loke Janmayati Drisham Prapya punyakritam lokan ushitva shashvatihi samaha Suchinam Shimadam Gehe Yoga Brashto Vijayate. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, the unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, ends up getting born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Atava yoginameva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabhataram loke janma yadi drisham. Krishna continues, O Arjuna, or if unsuccessful even after long practice of yoga, that fellow takes his birth in a family of great yogis who are of very high intellect. Certainly such births are rare in this world. Bharata Maharaja was indeed rare. He was the firstborn son of Maharaja Rishabha in a rich Kshatriya family, but due to his excessive attachment to an animal, an insignificant deer, he fell from a very high exalted position, whatever may be the justification for his emotional provocations. Bharata was thereby ordained to take birth as a child of a deer. However, due to his strong past as a great bhakta, Bharata was given a special gift with the remembrance of his past life. Being repentant, Bharata, although in his body of a deer, remained in a solitary forest and always thought of Paramatma Krishna. Then he was given the last chance to take another birth in a veritable Brahmana family. See how many births Bharata had to take because of a simple attachment. In this body, Bharata remained like one dull, deaf and dumb, as though mimicking a deer, the powerless, so much so when he was brought before the goddess Kali to be killed as a sacrifice, he never even protested but completely remained mute. How did it happen? From that of a birth of a Brahmana to a situation where he was taken to the altar of Mahakali for ultimate sacrifice. In this life as a Brahmana, Bharata could well remember the activities of his past life as a Maharaja and then as a deer, and in order to avoid the influence of society and all attachments of any kind, he decided to remain silent like a deaf and dumb person. He was incredibly careful not to fall down from the exalted state of Atman like in his previous births, since he could remember all of them. He did not mix with anyone who was not a devotee of the Lord. This process should be adopted by every devotee, as great acharyas say, and strongly advised by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Asat Sangatyagahe Vaishnava Achara. One should strictly avoid the company of non-devotees, even though they may be the actual family members of the individual, if this fellow is really interested in the path of pure bhakti. When Bharata was in the body of a Brahmana, the people in the neighborhood thought of him as a crazy, dull idiot. But within that body, he was always chanting and remembering Vasudeva. Although his father wanted to give him an education and purify him as a Brahmana, by offering him the sacred thread, he remained in such a way that his father and mother would conclude that he was crazy or lunatic and not interested in the reformatory process to become an actual Dvija. Nonetheless, in this birth, Bharata remained fully conscious of Bhagavan, even without undergoing any such official ceremonies. Due to his abject silence, some people who were no better than animals began to tease him in many ways, in fact, even stone him. But he tolerated. The young and mute Bharata tolerated all that. After the death of his father and mother, his stepmother and stepbrothers began to treat him very cruelly by inflicting physical injuries and making him do all kinds of difficult tasks. They would give him the most condemned food ready to be thrown away, and yet Bharata showed no emotion. He remained completely absorbed in Krishna Smaranam. Bharata was ordered by his stepbrothers and mother to guard a paddy field one night, and at that time the leader of a dacoit party took him away to offer him as a sacrificial animal before Bhadrakali. When the dacoits raised the chopper to kill Bharata, the goddess Kali became immediately agitated, enraged, sprung out of the idol, and taking the chopper in her own hands, annihilated all the dacoits gathered around there. Thus, a pure devotee of the Supreme Brahman can remain silent despite all mistreatment by non-believers of God, since God or Goddess would always appear at the appropriate hour to save. Remember, this is applicable only to Shuddha Bhakti devotee, a devotee who has completely surrendered to the Lord. Not everybody who is half-hearted in their belief or faith can think, okay, let anything happen, God will come and protect me. So different situations and different analysis. Although in this last birth, Bharata did not pursue the processes and tenets as a Brahmana, he always remained a Paripurna Shuddha Vaishnava, always thinking of the lotus feet of the Brahman. As Krishna reiterates in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana bhava madbhakta, Manmaya bhava madbhakta, Manmana bhava madbhakta madhyaji mam namaskuru, Mameva aishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me, Pratijane priyosi me. Manmanam ava badbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mameshvaisesi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. This is the only process by which one can be saved from the danger of repeated birth and death. Sukha describes in chapter 10 how Bharata Maharaja, now being called and shouted at as Jada Bharata, was successfully accepted by King Rahu Gana, ruler of the states known as Sindhu and Sauvira in those times. The quick background is like this. A carrier of King Raghugana's palanquin fell sick, and suddenly an urgent substitute was needed. In order to fulfill this need, the chief of the palanquin bearers found Jada standing somewhere as the most physically fit person to do the carrying of the palanquin as a substitute. He was therefore forced to carry the palanquin purely as an order from the king. Jada, however, did not protest this order but humbly accepted the assignment and started carrying the palanquin. But while carrying it, he was very careful to see that he did not step on any insect, even an ant going on the mud path when they were walking. And whenever Bharata saw an ant or any insect crossing by, he would stop until the insect has passed. You can imagine the speed of the insect and speed of the human beings. Because of this stop and go, he could not keep pace with the other carriers, and this was disturbing the balance of the palanquin very seriously. And the king inside the palanquin became very enraged and chastised Jada in the filthiest of language possible. But Jada, being completely free from the bodily consumption, did not respond or show any dissent to that kind of shouting and bad language. Bharata continued carrying the palanquin despite all the kicks. But when the jolt became intolerable, the king threatened him with severe punishment, including beheading. And at that point, for the very first time, Jada opened his mouth and talked to Raghugana. त्वयोदितं व्यक्तमविप्रलब्धं भर्तुः समेष्याद्यदि वीरभारः भर्तुः समेद्यात् यदि वीरभारः गन्तुर्यदि स्यात् अधिगम्यमद्वा पीवेति रासौ न विदा प्रवादः पीवेति रासौ न विदां प्रवादः गन्तुर्यदि स्यात् अधिगम्यमद्वा पीवेति रासौ न विदां प्रवादः त्वयोदितं व्यक्तम् अविप्रलब्धं भर्तुः समेष्यात् यदि वीरभारः गन्तुर्यदि स्यात् अधिगम्यमत्वा पीवेति राशौ न विदां प्रवादः. O great hero, whatever you have spoken sarcastically is certainly true. Actually, those are not simply words of chastisement, for the body is the carrier. The load carried by the body does not belong to me, for I am the Atman or the soul. There is no contradiction in your statements because I am different from the body. I am not the carrier of palanquin. The body is the carrier. Certainly, as you have hinted, I am not labored carrying the palanquin, for I am detached from the body. You have said that I am not stout and strong, and these words are befitting a person who does not know the distinction between the body and the soul. The body may be fat or thin, but no learned man would say such things of the spirit soul inside any body. As far as the spirit soul is concerned, that is Atman, I am neither fat nor skinny. Therefore, you are correct when you say that I am not very stout. Also, if the object of this journey and the path leading there were mine, there would be many troubles for me. But because they relate not to me but to my body, there is no trouble to me at all. Please remember. Jadavarada's outpourings are described in 5 slokas. Sloka 9 to 13 in chapter 10 of Canto 5. I only narrated the sloka 9. And I thought I could summarize it due to paucity of time. Those 5 are pearls of Vedanta summarizing the futility of the body and exalted nature of the soul that the body carries. Sukha then explains them to Parikshit in two more slokas. The king was mesmerized to hear the profound philosophical utterances of Jada Bharata and therefore awakened to his real knowledge. When he realized that he had offended a great, learned, and saintly person who he was fortunate to meet in his life, the king Rahugana very humbly prostrates and prays to Jada Bharata. Sukha explains in 10 slokams, sloka 16 to 25 in the same chapter, the humbled king's submissions to Bharata, and the last slokam almost summarizes it. न विक्रिया विश्वसुहृत्सकस्य साम्येन वीत अभिमतस्तवापि न विक्रिया विश्वसुहृत् सकस्य सौम्येन वीत अभिमते तवापि महद्विमानात् स्वकृताधिमातृ नङ्क्षति अदूरात् अभिशूलपाणिः अदूरात् अभिशूलपाणिः न विक्रिया विश्वसुहृत्सकस्य साम्येन वीत अभिमतेः तवापि महद्विमानात् स्वकृतात् हि मादृक् नङ्क्ष्यति अदूरात् अपि शूलपाणिः. Oh my dear Lord, you are the friend of Supreme Lord. This is what the king tells Jada Bharata. You are the friend of the Supreme Lord who is the friend of all living entities. You are therefore equal to everyone and you are free from the bodily conception which I realize now. Although I have committed an offense by insulting you, I know that there is no loss or gain for you due to my insult and you are untainted and unaffected. You are fixed in your steadfastness, but I have committed a serious offense unto you. Because of this, I am now aware, even though I may be as strong as Lord Shiva, I shall be vanquished without delay due to my offense at the lotus feet of Vaishnava, that is you. Why did the powerful king Rahugana fall at the feet of Jada Bharata, and why should he bring Shulapani into this in the words of Sukha to Parikshit? And why should the king seek for the grace and pardon of Jada Bharata? All this can be explained very simply. We will in due course, after a dozen Dasakams, come to Ambarisha Charitram, which highlights the importance of how Bhagavan always protects his Paramabhaktas and how the lofty but haughty Durvasa, who wanted to punish the great Vasudeva Bhakta Ambarisha, ended up running for life, being chased by Sudarsana Chakra and reaching Vaikuntha to plead for the mercy of Vasudeva. In the words of Bhattadri, in the 33rd Dasakam, Sloka 8, which we will come to that in a few months. Bhuyo bhavan nilayametya munim namantam proche bhavanagam rishe nanu bhakta dasah jnanam tapasya vinayan vidhameva manyam yakyam barisha padameva bhajeti bhuman bhuyo bhavan nilayametya munim namantam proche bhavanagam rishe nanu bhaktadasah jnanam tapasya vinayan vitameva manyam yahyam barisha padameva bhajeti bhuman. Bhuyo bhavan nilayametya munim namantam proche bhavanagam rishe nanu bhaktadasah jnanam tapasya vinayanvitameva manyam yahyam barisha padameva bhajeti bhuman. When the sage Durvasa reached your abode, namely Vaikuntha, O Guruvayurappa, and was prostrating before you, O Bhagavane, you told him, O Rishi, I am just a servant of my devotees. Knowledge and austerity combined with modesty and humility are the only ones that are respected in the creation. Go and seek shelter at the feet of Ambarisha himself to protect yourself from Sudarsana, since I am powerless once Sudarsana has started from my hands. I cannot do anything else. I can't even stop Sudarshana. This is how Bhagavan ends up telling Durvasa. Sukha tells Parikshit, "O Maharaja, you know what happened when Durvasa prostrated to the Supreme in Vaikunta?" The great Lord said, "Sadhavo hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam tvaham Sadhavo hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam tvaham Madanyate na jananti naham tebhyo managapi Madanyate na jananti naham tebhyo managapi Tebhyo naham managapi Sadhavo hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam toham madanyat tena jananti naham tebhyo managapi. The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. And in the same chapter, chapter 4 of Canto 9, a sloka after this, Sukha continues, Tapo vidya cha vipranam nishreyasakare ube tayeva durvinitasya kalpete karturanyata brahmam sad kacha bhadram te nabhagatanayam drupam Shamapaya mahabhagam tatashantihi bhavishyati tatashantihi bhavishyati Tapo vidyacha vipranam nishreyasakare ube te yeva durvinitasya kalpete karturanyata. For a Brahmana, austerity and learning are certainly auspicious, but when acquired by a person who is not gentle, such austerity and learning are most dangerous to the person who actually claims to be austere. Brahmastad gacha bhatram te nabhagatanayam nrupam shamapaya mahabhagam tatashantihi bhavishyati. O Durvasa, the best of the Brahmanas, you should therefore go immediately to King Ambarisha, the son of Maharaja Nabhaga. I wish you the best of luck. That's all I can say. If you can satisfy Maharaja Ambarisha, then there will be peace for you. Maybe Sudarsana Chakra may end up stopping it. Because only Ambarisha has the power to stop Sudarsana Chakra at this point. Is it then true that a true Vaishnava is protected by the Supreme and no one else in creation can attack him in any manner? Swami Madhvacharya affirms this by quoting the salient parts of Ambarisha Charitram from Garuda Purana. Let us listen to that. Brahmadi bhakti kodi amshadamso naiva ambarishake naiva anyasya chakrasyati tatapi harihi ishvaraha tatkalika upacheyatvat tesham yashasha adirat brahmadayasya tatkirtyam vyanjayam asuruttamam moganaya cha daityanam brahmade nindanaya cha anyartam cha swayam vishnuhu brahmadya shanirashishah Manusheshu Uttamat Vakcha Tesham Bhaktyadibihi Gunaihi Brahmade Vishnava Adinatva Jnanapanaya Cha Kevalam Durvasa Cha Swayam Rudra Tatapi Anyaya Muktavan Tasyapi Anugrahartaya Darpanashartamevacha अनुग्रहार्थाय दर्पनाशार्थमेव च। ब्रह्मादि भक्ति कोटि अंशात् अंशो नैव अम्बरीषके नैव अन्यस्य चक्रस्यापि तथापि हरिः ईश्वरः तात्कालिक उपचेयत्वात् तेषां यशसा आदिराट् ब्रह्मादयश्च तत्कीर्तिं व्यञ्जयाम् आसुरुत्तमां मोहनाय च दैत्यानां ब्रह्मादे निन्दनाय च अन्यार्थं च स्वयं विष्णुः ब्रह्माद्याश्च निराशिषः मनुष्येषु उत्तमात् वाक्च तेषां भक्त्यादिभिः गुणैः ब्रह्मादेर्विष्णव अधीनत्व ज्ञानापनाय च केवलं दुर्वासाश्च स्वयं रुद्राः तथापि अन्यायाम् उक्तवान् तस्यापि अनुग्रहार्थाय दर्पनाशार्थम् एव च. The line by line meaning will take a lot of time, but it's so exquisite. Let me attempt to summarize the meaning of this entire passage. The lesson concerning Maharaja Ambarisha and Durvasa Muni's misbehavior is that all the demigods, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, who are nothing but manifestations of the Lord Supreme Brahman, are under the control of Supreme Lord, either you call him Vishnu or Vasudeva or Brahman. Therefore, when a true Bhakta, who is called pure Vaishnava, is offended, remember, I have said so many times, Vaishnava doesn't mean anything parochial. Vaishnava, a pure Vaishnava, is a Shuddha Bhakta. The offender is punished by Vishnu, the Supreme Brahman. No one can protect such a person. Even Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva do not want to attempt to do such. That's the meaning of this. The knowledgeable king Raghugana knew all of that, and therefore he completely surrendered to Jada Bharata. He now wanted to understand the deep meaning of the philosophical words used by Jada Bharata, and with great sincerity, the king begged his pardon. He admitted that if one offends the lotus feet of the Shuddha Bhakta, namely pure devotee Jada Bharata or Bharata, he is certainly punished by the trident of Lord Shiva. Hence the conclusion. Mahatvimanat swakridhadhi madrunangshati adhuradabi shulapanihi, which we saw a little before in detail. It's not possible for everyone to become immediately self-realized like Bharata. However, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Nashtaprayeshva Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Sloke Bhaktihi Bhavati Naishtiki, which we saw earlier in the very first canto, second chapter. Sukha says this: by spreading the Bhagavata principles in anecdotes, namely the Puranic anecdotes about Bhagavatas, we can raise the decaying human society to a platform of piety, decency, and perfection. When one is not affected by the bodily conceptions, one can advance to Bhagavan's bhakti only, namely devotional service totally. Some of you may recollect that the term Bharata Varsha, country or desham, and Bharata Kanda are somewhat used loosely to convey the same. But in our Sankalpam for any Satkaryam that we do, all of us say Jambu Dvipe, Bharata Varshe, Bharata Kante, Shakabde, like that we go ahead. Consciously, as cosmographic and cosmology books on India mention that we were known as Jambu Dvipa for the longest time. Until Rishabha Yogeshwara's son Bharata was born, the continent was known as Jambu Dvipa, and the entire province allocated to him got renamed as Bharata Varsham. One of the sub-provinces ruled by this great Bharata Maharaja by one of his sons came to be known as Bharata Kanda. In larger context, we, India, now known as Bharat, are in Bharata Varsha. The order of lineage is Swayambhuva Manu, Priyavrata, Agnidra, Nabi, Rishabha Yogeshwara, which we saw in several Dasakams in the last few weeks. That is the lineage. Finally, Rishabha Yogeshwara, who happens to be one of Bhagavan's 24 incarnations, and then his son Bharata, who ended up taking the life of a deer and became Jada Bharata, but we will stop at Bharata, the king, son of Rishabha Yogeshwara. When Agnidra ascended the throne, Jambu Dvipa was divided into 9 varshams or 9 segments, and one of them later became Bharata Varsham, named after Rishabha Chakravarti's son Bharata. So, it was not Jambu Dvisa per se became Bharata Varsham. One of the 9 divisions of Jambu Dvipa became Bharata Varsham, which happens to be today's Bharat. King Dushyanta and Shakuntala's son Bharata was indeed one of the greatest kings of the later era. Let's not confuse with that Bharata and this Bharata. And one assertion is, some of the Puranic experts claim that Bharata Kanda, which is now talked about, was named after this Bharata who happened to be the son of Dushyanta. This may be equally plausible if you go by the above narration. As per Bhagavatam, go back to Sankalpam, Jambu Dvipe Bharata Varshe Bharata Kande. A few decades ago, I got the 2-volume book titled The Indian Philosophy by Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. I think it was a 1948 edition. When he was a professor at Oxford, Sri Radhakrishnan wrote that Rishabha, an incarnation of Vishnu, was being worshipped some 2500 years ago or maybe 3000 years ago. Radhakrishnan opined that a Yajurveda Shaka mentions the name of the 3 Tirthankars, namely Rishabhanatha, Ajitanatha, and Arishtanemi, and stated further that Srimad Bhagavatam endorsed that view that Rishabha founded the branch of Hinduism, what is now known as Jainism. When you talk to Jainis who believe in the birth of Jaina Maharaja, then they claim that it was Rishabha who founded Jainism. Since most of you enjoy the Puranic and other anecdotal references, I wanted to mention all of those. But now let us move on to Dasakam 21, in which Bhattadari narrates the different modes of worship of Bhagavan in the 9 continents, such as the Bharata Varsha and the 7 islands such as Plaksha. Bhagavata Purana describes all these in Canto 5, chapters 16 to 21. It is therefore useful to look into the description and relative portions of those 9 Varshas or continents, and also the 7 Dvipams or islands before we go into details of worships practiced in those regions. More than 2500 years ago, the writers of Purana that we have adopted as of today have used a similar method and divided the earth into natural divisions based on the predominant flora or fauna of this region. According to Linga Purana, Matsya Purana, Brahmanda Purana, and of course Srimad Bhagavata Purana, the world was divided into Saptadvipas or 7 islands. According to Puranic cosmography, the world is divided into 7 concentric island continents, Saptadvipa Vasumati, separated by the 7 encircling oceans, each double the size of the preceding one, going out from within. The 7 continents, as per different Puranas, are stated as Jambudvipa, Plakshadvipa, Kushadvipa, Kraunchadvipa, Shakadvipa, Shalmali Dvipa, and Pushkara Dvipa. 7 intermediate oceans consist of salt water, sugarcane juice water, wine, ghee, yogurt, milk, and pure water respectively. The mountain range called Loka Loka, meaning world no world, stretches across this final sea, delineating the known world from the dark void. Jambu Dvipa is the land of the Indian berries. We call Naval Param. Jambu Dvipa, now the experts claim to be Asia. Kushadvipa, namely the land of grass. Oceania, including Indonesia and the Philippines, but excluding Australia, are known as Kushadvipa. Plakshadvipa is land of the fig trees, South America. Shalmali Dvipa is the land of the silk cotton trees, Australia. Krauncha Dvipa, land of the Krauncha birds of the mussel crane, is known as Africa. Shaka Dvipa, land of the trees, is known as Europe or Greater Europe. Pushkara Dvipa, or the land of lakes, is now known as North America. The most detailed geography is described in the Vayu Purana. This is just the background as to why Narayana Bhattadri started dedicating a whole Dasakam only to talk about the continents and how Bhagavan is worshipped in those continents. Having said that, let us go to Dasakam 21. Madhyadbhave bhuvaila vridhanam nivarshe Madhyadbhave bhuvaila vridhanam nivarshe Gauri pradana Vanidajana matrabaji Charvena mantranudibihi Samupasyamana Sankarshanatmakamadishvara Shamsunayedvam Adishvara Shamsunayedvam Sankarshanatmakam Adishvara Shamsunayedvam. मध्योद्भवे भुव इलावृत नाम्नि वर्षे गौरी प्रदान वनिताजन मात्रबाजी सर्वेण मंत्रनुतिभिः समुपास्यमानं संकर्षणात्मकम अधीश्वर संश्रये त्वाम्. O Lord Adishwara, in this land, Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati with their retinue of 10,000 crores of female attendants propitiate his own cause, the fourth manifestation presiding over destruction, namely the function of Tamoguna, known by the name of Sankarshana. Bhattadri starts with a description of the modes of worship of the Lord from the region Ilavrata, where Bhagavan is present as Sankarshana, invoking him as Adishwara in this slokam. For curious one, here is the background. Srimad Bhagavatam, as re-narrated by Sukha, has many exquisite chapters. Chapter 17 of Canto 5 describes the descent of river Ganga in the Ilavrata Varsha. In that Varsha, Lord Shiva is the only male, as I said earlier. There, he lives with his wife Bhavani, who is attended by many millions of maids. Lord Shiva worships Lord Sankarshana by offering various prayers, one of which is as follows. My dear Sankarshana, please liberate all your devotees from material life and bind all the non-devotees to the material world. Without your mercy, no one can be released from the bondage of material existence. This is the prayer from Shulapani to Sankarshana. These descriptions clearly indicate that though great devotees at various places worship various manifestations in various forms, it is the same Lord who shines forth through all those forms, having created the world visible to the human eyes and the invisible ones beyond as well. O Lord of Guruvayur, you pervade all the elements of the world, and it is you who appropriately lead the cycle of creation. The most powerful Lord Shiva says, Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Sarvaguna Sankhyanaya Anantaya Avyaktaya Nama Iti. O Supreme Brahman, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you in your expansion as Lord Shankarshana. You are the reservoir of all transcendental attributes. While you are unlimited, you remain unmanifest to the non-devotees. Bhaje bhajanyarana pada pankajo bhagasya krishnasya paro parayanam Bhaje bhajanyarana pada pankajam bhagasya krishnasya paramparayanam bhakteshwalam bhavita bhuta bhavanam bhavabhagam tva bhavabhavanishwaram bhakteshwaram bhavita bhuta bhavanam bhavabhagam tva bhavabhavanishwaram Bhaje bhajanyarana pada pankajam bhagasya krishnasya paramparayanam bhakteshwalam bhavita bhuta bhavanam bhavabhagam tva bhavabhavanishwaram bhavabhavanishwaram Bhaje bhajanyarana pada pankajam bhagasya krishnaya paramparayanam Bhakteshwalam bhavita bhuta bhavanam bhavabhagam tva bhavabhavamishwaram. You would have noticed that this is one of the rarest slokams where the syllable bha is used so many times in such an exquisite combination. Bhaje bhajanyarana pada pankajam bhagasya krishnasya paramparayanam bhakteshwalam bhavita bhuta bhavanam bhavabhagam tva Bhava-bhavamishwaram. O Bhagavane, you are the only one worthy of worship. For you are the Supreme Brahman, the reservoir of all opulence. Your secure lotus feet are the only source of protection for all your bhaktas, whom you satisfy by manifesting yourself in multiple forms. Namarupa Nirvahaka. O my Lord, you deliver your devotees from the clutches of material existence. Non-devotees, however, remain entangled in material existence by your will perpetually. Kindly accept me as your eternal servant. Bhadrascha nama kailavrita purva varshe Bhadrashvavo virushibhi parinuyamanam Bhadrashva nama kailavrita पूर्ववर्षे भद्रश्रवोभिः ऋषिभिः परिणूयमानं कल्पान्तगूढनिगमोद्धरणप्रवीणं ध्यायामि देव हयशीर्षतनुं भवन्तं ध्यायामि देव हयशीर्षतनुं भवन्तम् Bhadrasya namaka ilavrita purva varshe Bhadrashavobihi Rushibihi Parinuyamanam Kalpanta Guda Nigamodharana Praveenam Dhyayami Deva Hayasirsha Tanum Bhavantam. Bhattadri says in second sloka, in that region, sage Bhadrasravas, a son of Dharma, the deity presiding over righteousness, is doing penance. His descendants are also known as Bhadrasravas. It is a manifestation of the Lord in the form of Hayagriva, namely the neck and head in the form of a horse, that they worship at all times. So this region, all the inhabitants of this region worship Hayagriva. O Lord, they extol you with the Vedic hymn, Om Namo Bhagavate Dharmaya Atma Vishodhanaya Namaha. This is according to Bhagavata Slokam. Hail to the Almighty, Dharma denoted by mystical syllable Om, who purifies the mind. Aho vichitram bhagavati chetitam gnantam. Aho vichitram bhagavati chetitam gnantam janoyam yimishanna pashyati. Dhyayan asatyari vikarma sevitum nirhritya putram pitaram jijivashi ध्यायन्न सत्यर्हि विकर्म सेवितं निर्वृत्य पुत्रं पितरं जिजीविषति पुत्रो पितरं जिजीविषति वदन्ति विश्वं कवयस्मनेश्वरं पश्यन्ति चाध्यात्मविदो विपश्चितः तथापि मुह्यन्ति तवाजमायया सुविस्मितं कृत्यमजं नतोऽस्मितं माया सुविस्मितं कृत्यमजं नतोऽस्मितम् अहो विचित्रं भगवत् विचेष्टितं घ्नन्तं जनोऽयं हि मिशन्न पश्यति ध्यायन् असत्यर्हि विकर्म सेवितुं निहृत्य पुत्रं पितरं जिजीविषति. Alas, how pitiable it is that the foolish materialist does not heed the great danger of impending death. He knows that death will surely come, yet he is nevertheless callous and neglectful. If one's father dies, that person wants to enjoy the father's property. If the person's son dies, he wants to enjoy the son's possessions as well. In either case, he tries needlessly to enjoy material happiness with the acquired wealth. How pitiable it is. Vadanti Vishwam Kavayaha Sma Naswaram Pashyanti Chadhyaya Atmavido Vipanchitaha Tatapi Mukhyanti Tavaja Mayaya Suvismitam Krityamajam Natosmitam. O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as do other logicians and philosophers. In trance, they realize the factual position of this world and they preach the truth as well. Yet even they are sometimes bewildered by your Maya or the illusory energy. This is your own wonderful Leela. Therefore, I can understand that Maya is indeed wonderful, and I offer my respectful obeisance unto you in the Swarupam of Maya. Interesting depictions and add more color to the Sanatana Dharmis to encourage them to read all the Puranas and compare notes. In some, Bhattadiri goes along with Sukha in Bhagavatam that Lord's manifestation Hayagriva killed the Asuras and retrieved the Vedas back to Brahma. Dhyayami dakshinagate harivarshavarsheye praglada mukhya purushaiye parishevyamanam uttunga shanta dhavalaakriti megha-shuddha jnana-pradam naragaryam bhagavan bhavantam. Dhyayami dakshinagate harivarshavarsheye praglada mukhya purushe parishevyamanam uttunga shanta dhavalaakriti megha-shuddha jnana-pradam naragaryam bhagavan bhavantam. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya Namaste Jastejase Aviravirbhava Brajanaka Vajranaka Vajradamsha Karmashayayan Randaya Randaya Tamo Grasa Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Abhayam Atmani Bhuyitta Om Strong. Dhyayami Dakshinagate Harivarsha-varshe Prahlada Mukhya Purushaihi Parishevyamanam Uttunga Shanta Dhavala-akriti Megha-shuddha Jnana-pradam Naraharim Bhagavan Bhavantam. O Lord, I meditate on your form as Narasimha, the man lion, white in color and gigantic in size, and is the bestower of the highest spiritual illumination, namely non-duality of Brahman, and which is always worshipped by exalted soul such as King Prahlada. Prahlada and his followers were all devotees in the course of uninterrupted and undivided devotion. Repeat the following Vedic hymn. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya. Namaste Jastejase. Aviravirbhava Vajranaka Vajradamshta. Karmashayan Randhaya Randhaya. Namo Grasa Grasa. Om Swaha. Abhayam Abhayam Atmani. Bhuyishta Om Kshram. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lord Narasimha, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possess nails and teeth just like thunderbolts. Om Shram is a mystical syllable sacred to Lord Narasimha. Stotrams 9 to 14 are worthy of Parayanam to get the grace of Narasimha Swami. We will stop here, continue the rest of the slokams in the next session to complete Dasakam 21 and start the most important Dasakam 22, Ajamilopakyanam, after that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Narayanaya. Narayana 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 Hare Krishna Guruvayurappa. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.